This may not be my kind of neighborhood, but my backyard's gonna be my backwoods. 'Cause I'm your resident redneck, four-wheel driving, coolers on the back deck, catfish frying, I can see you from your front step, cocking an eyeball to me, yeah. Well, I'm invading your city.
No! This is Adventures with Pappy.
Redneck.
Hey everybody, welcome to Adventures with Pappy. My name is Ryan, but I'm better known as Pappy. I am wanting to bring you on my adventures. You know, I love to explore because there is so much out there, you know, that in our own backyard that a lot of people don't even know about, you know, ghost towns, mining camps, historical places that you can bring your family. I have a 22-year-old, a 21-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and I'm always looking for places that I can spend quality family time with them. And I am going to bring you on my adventures to some of those places. I am originally from the Appalachian Mountain area, Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, where they all come together. I was actually born near the most southern tip of Ohio, and I'm actually part of that wonderful Hatfields and McCoys feud. I am a Hatfield, and I'm actually excited. One day we might actually be able to go on an adventure and find out more about my heritage and all that. You know, ever since I was a little boy, my dad used to take me out in the desert, and I love rock hounding. I am a huge collector of rocks, minerals, gems. I loved gold pan, and I'm hoping that by taking my kids on those adventures with me, they can be just as excited as I am. My little 4-year-old and 3-year-old now, 4-year-old's turning 5 soon, but they love to go rock hounding with me, and I have to make sure I bring a big bucket with me because every rock goes in that bucket. So I'm getting my dad bod back into shape. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope that I can give you ideas to take your family to, and you know, introduce your children and your family and friends to the wonders that we have. We have lots and lots throughout the United States that we don't have to travel halfway across the world to find anything. You know, there is so much. I mean, you can find treasures. You know, the family time alone, getting off the phones, off the video games. I know it's hard, but you know, just being out in the outdoors. Now, I know that in some areas, you know, where I'm at, Arizona, summertime is really hard to get out and explore. But then there are places in the high country that we can go visit, and we are going to take you on those adventures with us. So hopefully you enjoy the show, Adventures with Pappy, and I'm excited to bring my adventures to you.
Hey everybody, my name's Matt, or as everybody else calls me on the internet, it's Bustin' Jeeber. I'm a full-time Twitch streamer and content creator on the internet, but mainly recently my focus has been on Adventures with Pappy. Going on adventures with him, helping him film, helping him edit. He doesn't know half of the stuff when it comes to this, so I have to help him, teach him, so that hopefully he can do it. Most likely I'll be editing every single episode of this show, because of the fact that he doesn't really know what he's doing. But he's learning, so he's getting better with it. But yeah, mainly I focus a lot of my time as a content creator on Twitch and YouTube. I like just sitting back playing video games with friends and streaming it on the internet. Because of an ongoing back issue that I have, I'm not able to work as much as I would like to. So because of this, I play video games and stream as my hobby. But in the future, I do plan on eventually getting into film as a director, making movies, films, you know, TV shows like this, and just creating content for the world to see. And if this is the start for me in helping Pappy with his adventure, I'm along for the ride.
Our first stop in our adventure is going to be the town of Wickenburg, Arizona, where we're going to make 2 stops before we head out to the fun at Vulture.
Oh, hey there. Right, so we are at the Wickenburg jail tree. This is an old mesquite tree, okay, that was used back 1863 to 1890, where people, like my buddy here, he won't give me his name for whatever reason, he's pleading the fifth, but they were shot here for drunks, disorderly, and all that. But the sad thing is they were stuck here in this spot, dealing with the elements, whether it was heat, rain, snow, wind, whatever. They were stuck here until the city of Phoenix was able to come get them. So, there could be a whole bunch of them shackled to one tree at that time. But, given there were never any escapes, they were always stuck here until somebody came to get them.
The Wickenburg jail tree sits in the heart of Wickenburg, nestled near the museum at a busy intersection. Although it is a busy area, it's a lot of fun to visit because you actually get to see some of the remains of the Old West town. The town of Wickenburg, founded in 1863 and was finally incorporated in 1909, and is named after Henry Wickenburg, whose final resting place sits upon the top of this hill near his old property. This is the Wickenburg Pioneer Cemetery, where the first burial was in 1902.
We are here in the Wickenburg Pioneer Cemetery. I'm standing in front of 3 crypts of the 6 people we were able to identify here. There are said to be 7 buried at this site. And the very first inhabitant to be buried here when the cemetery was first founded, 1902, this is Mr. James. He was a very, very popular individual through the community. Everybody loved him, and there's like some mystery surrounding his death. They say that he may have been attacked by Indians that were in the area, but we do know that he was brutally murdered. Okay. The second one that we have that was buried in here, this is the mayor's wife. Okay, she was buried here in 1905. But here's a really cool one that I missed when I first started looking at this. If you look straight in between Mr. James and the mayor's wife's here, you see it says Jovay. I'm not sure how to say that. Jovay. It says 1906, but there's no, I don't know if that's the first name or last name, and I'm not sure how they may be buried here or if they're somewhere else on the property, so that's kind of interesting. And then the next person to be buried on the site would be Mr. Weiss over here. He was a merchant, very, very well-known merchant that was buried over here in 1907. And then we have Mr. Wickenburg. He was 1905, buried over there in the site by himself in his own spot. And the very last one, this right here is Mr. Cow. He was the very first mayor of Wickenburg, died in 1928, and was buried right next to his wife in this nice spot. What's really nice about it, overlooks beautiful scenery, even though it is relatively small. It's great for reminding us of the pioneers that came and the times that they were here. And it just gives us a lot more respect of where Arizona came from. This is the final resting spot right here for Henry Wickenburg, died at 85 years old in 1905. And he actually died by taking his handgun, Colt revolver, shooting himself in the head. Died very, very poor, which is really sad because he made, or the mine that he had, Vulture Mine, made a lot of money. He didn't make any money. He got $20,000 out of $85,000 he was supposed to be given by Phelps, and spent that $20,000 trying to sue them to get the money back that he wasn't getting paid while they were producing millions of dollars worth of gold. He actually bought a cattle farm out here in Wickenburg and tried his hand in cattle farming, but then a flood washed out his farm and he lost everything he had. And so, of course, very depressed and sad, but had no idea that Wickenburg would be as big as it is now. I've never actually seen a pioneer cemetery in this matter, which is really interesting. But it's just a sad reminder that somebody that came from nothing to open up the most lucrative mine that Arizona's ever seen as far as gold mines go, and then making nothing and dying poorly. It's sad.
Now it's time to take a drive through some beautiful mountain areas to head to our destination of Vulture City. Word of caution, keep your eyes peeled. There are tons of wildlife running through this area, some I like to call renegade cattle, and some seriously sharp turns. but you could see many different areas that would be fun to explore along the way. Before we go into town, we're going to stop just outside the town and visit the Verde Flats Cemetery, also known as the Vulture City Pioneer Cemetery. It is said to have been founded in 1870. The sad thing is, no one really knows how many people are buried here and what their names are due to the lack of record keeping in the 1800s.
This is the only marked gravesite here in the Verde Flats Cemetery. This is Francisca Valencia. She was 6 years old when she died, but out of the whole site, this is the only one that is marked. Now this is not her original stone marker here, because you can actually see the granite here where it's actually broken off. But somebody's come in and actually put another one for her, and they place coins throughout on the crosses and on hers. It's a way of helping the preservation of the site here. Okay, so last night we came onto the site. It was me and Busted Jeeber, and we placed 3 trail cams on the site. One in the front entrance of the cemetery, one towards the back of the cemetery, and then one here that was this one, which was directly across from Francisca's gravesite here. And the reason we did that is because there are stories about a little ghost boy that comes out to play with people that are here at the cemetery. It's been said that he's very friendly. They hear him giggling, and then he goes running off into the desert there. So I did promise him yesterday, okay, that I was going to bring him a blue ball. So I'm going to place it here next to Francisca's site, because I would think that she would be playing with him. And let's see here, we got a nice little blue ball that we're going to put right here. That way he's got his ball to play with, and he knows that we're friendly. We're not here to disturb him in any way, and we want him to be peaceful. Alright, so Matt, last night we came here at the site and we placed 3 trail cams. Okay, so we had the one at the front entrance over here.
Yep.
Then we got the one that we put in the back of the cemetery. Okay, both of those were recording video.
Yep.
Okay, and then we got this one here. And that one we put right over here in front of Francisca's site, only recording pictures. So when we open it up and we look at it, now it's really hard to see right now. So when we get back to Pappy headquarters there,
Yeah.
we're gonna have to go take a look at it and let everybody know what we find.
Yeah.
But we've got, let's see here, how many pictures on this? 817 pictures
Holy
over
crap.
a 13-hour interval. Now that could be wildlife. It could be our little ghost boyfriend. I don't know. So we're gonna have to take this one back to headquarters and take a look at it
Yeah.
and see what we can find.
Let's gather up the other 2 cameras and then
Okay, let's
let's
head to the back and we'll check that one out.
yeah, let's do that.
I hope everybody here, you still can rest in peace. Ghost Boy, I hope that I brought you a little bit of joy with your little blue ball. Francisca, I hope you enjoy the little stuffed animal. We didn't come here to disturb anybody, and I hope that you are able to rest peacefully. here's some interesting for you. So out here in the Vulture Mountains, there's actually an air landing strip for planes. A landing strip right just north of Vulture City. So I find that quite interesting. So we're going to see what details we can find about why this was here, you know, when it came to be built, whatnot. So you can actually see Vulture City just to the south of me. Start seeing some of the buildings. That's a newer barn probably for the people that run the city now. But you can see some of the original buildings way in the back there. Thought that'd be a piece of interesting information. Here we are outside Vulture City, right next to the Vulture Mine. This is the moment you've been waiting for in our adventure, and I can't wait to take you inside and show you all the history that's around here and what a great place this is. Okay, but before we do that, I want to kind of give you a little bit of history about the town before we get in and talking about the buildings and the structures. Okay, Henry Wickenburg founded Vulture Mine in 1863. Now, there's really not a lot of knowledge as to really how he founded it, the town, how he came up with the name, because there's so many different stories out there. One of my favorites, though, is that he was looking for something to make a broom with, to sweep his camp up, and he saw the vulture out in the distance that was in need of help. It was dying, and so he gets up there and realizes this vulture is near dead, so he puts it out of his misery. He picks up the vulture so he can remove the wing, and he sees a huge quartz rock with gold. And that's when he said, this area's got gold. It started finding more croppings. Now, once he found his quartz outcropping, and then he actually decided to settle his mine and make it public, okay, right up in that area down there, we had over 5,000 residents, 40 buildings that were built here. Okay, but he wasn't the first person to settle this area, which is really interesting, because 700 AD we had Hohokam Indians that lived in this area, and they actually built canals all the way to the Salt River to bring water in for their crops. And in 900 AD they increased those canals another 130 miles. Now, we actually use those canals to this day. We've just upgraded them better, and we use that to bring water into Arizona. But then the Indians abandoned the area in the 15th century, and they say it's probably due to drought. Now, the area's always been dangerous, okay? Very dangerous, violence of all sorts. We had murders, shootings, rapes, theft, you name it. But one of the biggest things was the Apaches. The Apaches used to raid this area, and it said over 400 miners and residents were killed in this area in a 15-year time period. Now, in 1866, 3 years after finding the mine, Wickenburg sold 80% of his interest for $85,000 to a B. Phelps out of New York, a very wealthy businessman. But he only received a $20,000 down payment on that, which is really sad. So they refused to pay him the other $65,000. He spent that whole $20,000 in litigation fighting B. Phelps to try to recover the rest of the money. During litigation, though, Phelps took out over $1,850,000 in gold. That's really sad. The mine was eventually shut down in 1942 by the War Department of the United States, being non-essential to the war efforts. Then the miners went on strike and fought because this was their livelihood, this was their job. And they finally reopened the mine, but it never regained its glory. Now, the mine is currently being mined, so that area is off limits to the public right now, unfortunately. But hopefully they do find some really good gold. Now, it's also said that the famed Jacob Waltz, which is also known as the Lost Dutchman, actually worked here. And he was said to be one of the biggest high graders and thieves of the whole mining area. And that there's a theory that the Lost Dutchman's mine, his gold, is actually gold from the Vulture mine. And that because he was such a big thief, he didn't want to get caught, he came up with the story of the Lost Dutchman's mine. Okay, now the gold take, they took over 340,000 ounces out of this mine from 1863 to 1942. Okay, 1942, the prices for gold was $35.50 an ounce. Okay, now as of May 2019, the price of gold is $1,281.18. So that means today's value for 340,000 ounces would be $435,546,500. Now, it also said that it took over 260,000 ounces of silver. Today's value, that would be $3,975,400. So you can see this was very productive. Now, I can't wait. What do you say? We head on in and let's get on our adventure. So we are at the beginning of when you first come into Vulture City. This is the blacksmith's building. Okay, now when we first come into the blacksmith's building, now this building was built in between 1890 and 1900. Now this piece of machinery, when you first come in, this is really cool. This is the air compressor that fed all of the air into the mine shaft so the miners could breathe. So this is a really cool piece. And over to the side here, there's actually a storage room where they had old oil and compressor and machinery parts that were in here. So that's a really neat piece there. But as we come around the air compressor, the old machine shop, you've got the old tools, which is really cool. You got an old drill bit, which is really cool. Some equipment and stuff like that. This is all equipment and stuff that was found here in Vulture City, which is really cool. Old parts, old bolts. These are really cool. I mean, they don't make them like they used to. So this is like pure steel and iron, which is really cool. As we come out here, this is where the blacksmith worked day after day, every day in the heat. Okay, this is the forge. This is what he used to heat up the metal. And then come over and work the metal in these different areas. Now let's see if we can find a piece around here. Actually, there's some old drill bits right here. These are what he would build. These are the old drill bits that they would use on the hard rock to get to where the gold was so they could follow those veins. He would work these and make these all day, every day, because they would go through so many of these every day. So that's a pretty neat, piece there. Then right over here, we've got another drill press and another piece of iron working machinery. So all of this stuff was left here when Vulture City was abandoned in the 50s. Hey there, welcome to the Vulture City Post Office. This post office was established October 4th, 1880. But then 17 years later, it was discontinued, which was April 24th, 1897. Now, a really interesting fact, though, was Henry Wickenburg, the founder of Vulture City, was actually the first postmaster in Vulture City. Come on into the post office here. This is really cool. They still have a lot of the original postal equipment here, which is really neat. So they have the old domestic post office bags. This is where the riders that delivered the post office by wagon or horse, they filled these bags up. And here's where the original mailboxes originally, where they would put the mail for each of the residents that lived here. And remember, there's over 5,000 residents at one particular time at the highest stage of this town. And so that postmaster had a lot to do. Over here we have the scale. Now back then they didn't have the fancy electronic scales like we do. They used by weight so they can measure. Now, believe it or not, they would actually weigh gold here too, so they could figure out how much it's going to cost for that person to ship that gold out of here. So it's a really cool little building. Now, this building, again, was one that had to be reconstructed, but it was reused with the exact same bricks, exact same adobe, and you can actually see how it still falls apart. That was here So this is the exact same equipment. The only difference would be the roof, because they used adobe roofs back then, and adobe roofs actually collapsed when it would storm and rain. And we want this to be preserved for a long time. This is the assay office. Okay, this building is the biggest building in Vulture City and probably the most important building in Vulture City. It was built in 1884. Okay, right off to the left of me here, we actually have where the guards, their quarters were. Up at the top is their living quarters, and the mess hall where they ate, and everything was right there. Right behind me is where the vault is, where they stored all of the bullion and all the metal bars that they melted down in that building right there to the right of me. And that's where they did all of the assay, where they were able to tell how much money and how good of a grade the ore was. Now we're gonna go inside and we're gonna take a look. Up here, this is where the guards were stationed. Okay, this is where they had a direct view of the vault that is in the room that you are in right now. So up here, this is where they lived. There's actually old telegraph cables here, which is really, really cool. So I'm gonna have you guys meet me at the stairwell, and I'm gonna bring you up here and show you what this looks like. Alright, so I'm coming down this creaky stairwell from the guards' quarters. I'm going to take you up here. This is an off-limits area that I've been given exclusive to bring you guys up and show you what this looks like. So I'm going to be taking the camera over from Busted Jeeber, and I'm going to take you guys on a tour.
It's recording.
So let's go on up here. Whoa. This is a really creaky building. Okay, again, very off limits. You can actually see the frame of one of the old guards' beds right here. This is a storage room. I would guess maybe where they stored the guns, because you could see that area there. You can see the old adobe. An old outside view. And then we have the view down in there. We got Busted Jeeber down there. But they can actually see the vault perfectly from up here, which is a perfect vantage point should anybody attempt to be stupid and try to rob the place. A view outside, unfortunately, there's a water truck there now because they got to bring water up here. Then we have the bathroom, or what's left of it. This is where, unfortunately, because they weren't allowed to go outside, they had to do their business. All right, we're gonna head back down them creepy stairs. I'm telling you, this floor is very, very creaky, so I can understand why they don't allow anybody in there. There's Bustin waiting for me down there. Say hi, Bustin.
Hello.
It's a creepy building, isn't it?
You're pretty creepy.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna hand you back over.
Now, if you guys ever want to see a fat man try to get over a little railing,
Fat man over little man. It's off limits. That's why it's hard to get over, which makes sense. Let's see if I can do. All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right. All right. All right. So we're going in here. This room right here is where they did all of the sampling of all of the areas that they were potentially going to mine in. I'm gonna put my flashlight away and show you guys. This is what they call a core sample. Okay, the core sample, they would send the drill down and bring this up. And actually, you know what? I might bring my light on for this so you guys can see this a little better. There's actually some really cool sparklies in there. The quartz veins and stuff. And so this is where they would decide whether or not they would actually mine that particular spot. So this is really cool. I'm out of breath from hiking those stairs. But still have some of the old books that were left in this building. but they spent a lot of time in this building. This is where a lot of the decisions were made as to whether or not they were actually going to mine certain spots out here in the Vultures. In this room here, this room is where they did all of the assaying. This is where they broke down the minerals and told everybody how much money basically they were making with their rocks. Right over here, this is some of the old equipment that they use to actually mix the chemicals in. It looks like an old mad scientist lab, which is really, really neat. And as we work our way here, I mean, you can still see some of these. Potassium bisulfate. No idea what that is, but I don't think I want to mess with it. I mean, there's still chemicals in a lot of these buildings, or bottles, that are in this building, which is really cool. Here we have an old furnace. This is a pretty cool one. Open it up for you to see. They would actually take, basically we have these little kiln things here, and put them in the furnaces and heat up the ore. And that's what they did. They melted the ore and they put those chemicals in there, and it would leach the ore or the mineral out of the rock. And that's what they would take so that we could throw away the scraps. So that's pretty cool. And this one here, I mean, old furnace. Pretty cool. And then we come over here to a multi-furnace. This one here actually went all the way through, and they can actually cook at different levels. So they had more than one thing going because they had so many different prospects on this property at any given time, which is really cool. And they took these core samples we were talking about. This is what they would crush down first, put it in here so that they could bring it up to see exactly how much they. And over here, this is where they would cut the rocks, grind the rocks down so that they could get to where they wanted to get to see what they wanted to see within the rocks, because there was a lot of different machineries in here. You can see up here, this is part of the old machine. I mean, it's such a big, heavy iron machine, which is really cool. Now, as we work our way this way, we've got another furnace. This is really cool. This one's a wood furnace, so I'm guessing this one would not burn as much as the other ones would. But it's really cool that they were able to keep this much of the assay office and the buildings here in place. This is the famous hanging tree here in Vulture City. It's said that 18 miners were hung here in this tree, and they were hung for high grading, they were hung for murder, rape, so many things. This is an old ironwood tree. As you can tell, it was never really, really tall. So the way that they hung them, which is really neat. Ropes such as that, they would put a rope or a rock underneath their feet and put the rope just enough to where they kick that rock, their toes would be able to touch the ground, and it was up to them how long they would die, or take to die, I should say. So it could take up to 5 hours at some points for somebody to die because they were on their toes and they would finally get weak. So that's really interesting. And right behind me, we have Henry Wickenburg's original cabin. This tiny little 15 by 15 cabin was Henry Wickenburg's cabin. As you can see, it doesn't have a lot of amazing features because it was very simple back then. Now you see these holes here. These were actually built, one, to let air in because there's no air coming through here, no air conditioning, and two, so he can actually use to put his rifle through to shoot at people that were attacking. And it was notorious back in the day for Indians to attack the sites like this. And so what we've got here, we've got a simple table. And then right over here, this is the stove that was in Wickenburg's cabin. What's really cool, it's a pretty simple stove. You would throw wood in there, so it was wood fired, and all of his cooking was there. A simple bed off in the corner. He might have had a couple chairs or two on the other end. Now what's interesting about this is Wickenburg's original cabin actually collapsed because it was built with adobe and adobe roofs and adobe walls. And these rocks, these are the actual bricks and adobe bricks and walls that were used when they rebuilt the cabin. The only thing that is not original would be the ceilings, because the ceilings again were made out of straw, adobe, branches, twigs, all that stuff. So they want to preserve that. But what's really cool is they were able to reuse every single brick and then crush down and make adobe from the exact same adobe so that they could reconstruct this building for him. Now what's really neat about it is once Henry Wickenburg left this area and moved to Wickenburg, this was actually the city jail. So little 15 by 15, it's pretty interesting. This is the doctor's office in Vulture City. The only doctor's office that was for miles and miles away. But what's interesting about this, there's actually located next to the brothel. So we're gonna go inside here. Let's go take a look and see what they have in here. As you can tell, this is actually a relatively small doctor's office because back in those days, they didn't have the sophisticated machines and equipment that we have today. As you can see right over here, we have the doctor's desk. This is where he would have his medicine stored. There's actually some old medicine bottles and stuff like that that are here, which are really interesting. Wash stations, because you know they had a lot of accidents, so I'm pretty sure he was constantly washing his hands, all that. We have some old medicine bottles here as well. This probably held stuff like laudanum and opioids, stuff like that, liquid medicines at that time. So that was really interesting. And then here we have a doctor's examination table. But as you can see, it's not as cool and comfortable, I guess you could say, as the examination tables that we have today. I mean, basically just a wood table. They throw a sheet over it. You've got old stirrups. I'm sure there were a lot of babies born out here. And I'm sure that this examination table was used a lot because of the minor accidents that took place, which happened almost on a daily basis out here. Right over here, this is an old wheelchair, all made out of wood, which is really interesting. It has a metal edge around the wheel here, which is really cool. And then they had simple beds. Now, unfortunately, the mattresses have, worn away now. They're no longer here. But this is the frame of the doctor's bed here. The doctors also sometimes would live here because it was so busy all the time. And I'm pretty sure he got a lot of visitors from the brothel next door. Alright, we just left the doctor's office. Now we're going to be going into the brothel. Now, brothels were notorious back in the mining camp days because, miners needed exclusive activities after mining all day. This brothel is known as Mexican Rita's brothel. As you can see, she's got her stuff here. Her old bed is here. You can actually see the old walls. They use cement, adobe, brick. You can actually look and see there's quartz in this wall here, right here. They would use the ore or the rock that they called waste rock and actually build the walls and put it in with their mud. Really interesting. As we go this way, I would like to say this is Rita's staging area, which is really interesting, is where her clients would come to visit. I don't know if this is Rita or not, but first time I came through here, this scared me because I thought it was Rita. We go back in here. This is an old kitchen. Okay, not a lot to it because back in the day they didn't have a lot. Now in the 50s, they started running power here. So you'll see some signs of power stuff. But it was a simple kitchen, simple stove, wood burning stove, which is really interesting. So I'm pretty sure they ate here. I guess you call the mistresses that lived here would eat in this room. And then we have another room. I would think that this might have been another bedroom. So from the looks of it, we do have some old artifacts in here, old closet, some chairs and stuff. I'm guessing this was another one of the mistress's rooms. There's actually a door so that they can get out the other door just like Rita's room did. And as we come back this way, this is an old washroom. This probably was put in later on, 30s, 40s, and 50s. As you can see, the old bathtub. I'm not sure what that is. It looks like it might be an old water heater of some sort. and then again another exit to get out of the property. So Rita is actually said to still be in this building, and people have said they've heard people or a female voice saying, "Do you know the way out?" They've heard women talking, laughing. They've heard extracurricular, noises coming from the building after hours. But it's a really interesting building. But again, they were notorious because miners, had so much extra time outside of mining, had a lot of extra money, and usually they were by themselves, just men companionship. So they needed the female companions. But it's interesting how this building is still sound as structurally as it is now.
Cool. So apparently, a lot of people say they hear it. I want to try to get Rita's attention. Now, Rita, if you're hearing me, I got a couple bucks for you. Rita. What do you say? I'm 22. Show me a good time. There's your money. Come say hi to us. If you're actually here. Show yourself, or talk to our nice recorder over here. Go see our GoPro. Something. Give us a sign. Show us you're here. You gonna do anything, girl? Not even joking you. Right after I said that, it got really cold over here.
Really?
It got really cold over here.
Really?
Like, my arms are like cold.
Wow.
Come talk to us. Come get your money. We'll leave you alone.
Oh, it just
Yeah.
moved.
Yeah. What do you say? We can have a good... Are you over here? Come visit. Yeah?
What?
It's like footsteps outside. Yeah?
What?
It's like footsteps outside.
You asking the deaf guy if he heard something?
It was like something. Yeah. I don't know if the camera picked it up, but...
Oh, man. It's a good thing they don't have a toilet here. I might need... This is the bunkhouse that a lot of the miners would use to sleep in, and they would actually rotate shifts, sleeping in the beds inside here. And one of the sad things about this is not only did they share the beds on rotating shifts, they shared the dirt and the lice that came with it. Now right now this is actually under restoration. They are restoring the floors inside to make it safe to walk on again. But this is just one of the many areas that over 5,000 inhabitants were able to sleep in when they weren't working. Alright, so this is the old mess hall and kitchen here. Now, right out here is where the miners would eat day and night, all of their meals. Now, right now they're in the process of making this a little bit more of a family-friendly spot to sit and eat. Maybe have a meal with history, maybe have a meal with some of the old miners that lived here. Never know. Right over here to my right, we actually have the old bar. Pretty sure we have lots of whiskey served up here, some old beer. We got some old liquor bottles over here. That's got something in it, yay. And then right through here is where the cook did all of his work. Let's go take a look inside and see how this looked back in the day. So inside here is where magic happened. This is where the cook did all of his work. Using this stove right here is where all the foods were made. You had your oven down in here and the stove up on top, and it was all wood burning. And then we have areas for prep, washing, dishes, food that was stored here. We have some old buildings that were found here, which is really interesting. I mean, old shampoo bottle, but we got vinegar bottles, pickles. Oh wow. This actually has onions still in it.
Ew.
Yum. All right, let's go down this way. And what's interesting is back in here, the cook actually had to live on the site because he was cooking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, basically, for the miners. Right in here is the pantry. We have a lot of old glass bottles because back then everything was preserved either in bottles or in tin cans. We got some old miners' plates. Let's see what kind of old mustards.
There's coffee down there.
Coffee. Explosives.
Miracle Whip.
Wow. Peach preserves. A lot of really interesting things in here. So this is really cool. And now we're gonna go see where the cook actually lived. Okay, you gotta remember, he had to live here in the kitchen. So he had this small little space that's probably smaller than majority bedrooms today. This is the cook's old living quarters. Basically just enough room for a bed, maybe a chair or two, and that's it. Okay, and what's really interesting about that is he was constantly working, and I don't know how much staff he had with him, but he was constantly working, feeding hungry miners day and night. In front of the oldest of the two schoolhouses here, this one was built right when the town opened up and it gained its population so that they could teach the miners' children. As you can see behind me, the building is very, very weathered and is starting to fall apart. Now, I am going to be going in under safety precautions, but at no time do I ever recommend going into one of these unless you know what you're doing and you've checked to make sure, one, there's no snakes, nothing dangerous is going to bite you. So be very, very careful if you ever enter a building such as this. As you can tell, this building is definitely starting to fall apart. Walls are falling down. You couldn't tell that this was an old schoolhouse unless you knew the history of the area. This room is probably a 12 by 12 room. It's one of two rooms that are part of the schoolhouse, and then it has a back area. I will be taking you back into there. This is the second of the two rooms that we have here. You can actually see an old table that is still here. This is about the same size as the other room. Now I've seen signs that there was electricity in here at one point, and I'm guessing that might have been put in here after the maybe 30s or so, maybe 40s, when it was easier to get electricity out here, which was run by the generator that's over on the other side of the mine. You actually see an old wash station here, old cupboards. I mean, this is really, really neat. I'm really loving this. This is really cool. You got old chimney right here, old chimney, the old smokestack. You could tell there used to be a stove or some type of little fireplace, probably to keep it warm in the wintertime, the same as the other side. So that way the children, stay warm, because in Arizona, yes, it does get hot, but when you get up in these mountains, it gets cold. Here we are on an old porch area. Now, by the looks of this, this might be the old bathroom, okay, which is also maybe like a outhouse kind of style, because look at it's earth dirt down on the bottom, probably where they filled it in when they were done. But I would guess that this would be the old bathroom, and we're standing on the old patio, which I'm sure the children came out, ate lunch, and enjoyed their extra time they may have. Just behind me is the newest of the school buildings that sit here, just northwest of the Vulture mine. As you can see, looking at it, it's definitely weathered. It's got its windows are breaking. Unfortunately, signs of vandalism, which is really sad. But nevertheless, it still shows that back then when they built it to last. This is one of the 2 rooms in the new schoolhouse. As you can see, the original blackboard still is hanging on the wall. Unfortunately, people have come and scribbled and vandalized it a bit, which is really sad and disheartening. But there is still some stuff here as far as acknowledgement that this was a school. As you can tell, it's probably a 12 by 12, maybe 13 by 13 room. No air conditioning in the Arizona summer with packs probably with 10, 15, 20 kids in here, maybe even more. You can imagine it'd be pretty kind of crazy as far as heat goes. And just like the first room, we still have the original blackboard that was built onto the wall here. And it's actually still really good condition by looking at it. We've got some old erasers here that were probably the original erasers for the boards. But it's really interesting to see that something that was built back in the late 1800s still stands this perfectly. As we pass this barrier here, we come into the second classroom in this old, the newer school building, I should say. And just off to the left of me here, we actually have an old piano from when the school was built that's still standing. It does not play anymore, but there are stories that people have said that they've heard music being played, piano music being played out of this room, but yet there's no way that this piano even works.
It is said that in 1923, 7 miners snuck into the Vulture mine with 12 burros to steal the gold from the support columns. After cleaning gold off the columns couldn't support the mine and it collapsed, burying the 7 thieves and their burros. 100 feet of rock came crushing down on them. They are still buried under the rubble, and the town felt that since they were criminals, they did not deserve a proper burial. There are other mine shafts around the property, but are all on the side that the current mining operation is running and are off limits to the public.
This town is definitely worth the time for a visit. Fun for the whole family. So much history here in this area. But just like all good stories, this one has got to end.
As we come to the end of our adventure, there is still one more place for us to stop. I need something to help curb my adventurous appetite. This restaurant is bragged about by the locals as the go-to place in Wickenburg. Yelp and other reviews tell of out-of-this-world food. From amazing potato skins to burgers, steaks, and a prime rib. And an amazing atmosphere, Cowboy Cooking is my place to visit each time I'm in Wickenburg. Although they are closed on Tuesday and Wednesday, the food is some of the best cowboy food I ever had. I love walking around and looking at all the Old West pictures and items on the walls, especially the old guns. They even have a spot if you ride in on your horse to hitch him up, and they have water stations there for the horses as well. I definitely suggest checking out Cowboy Cooking. If you're interested in visiting Vulture City, check out their website at www.vultureminetours.com for current operating times and more information on the town. Make sure you tell them that Pappy sent you.